either the best version of yourself or the worst version of yourself. Marcus Gasol shot 39% from three during the regular season, or what was a truncated regular season. Pretty good. In the playoffs, he shot, I believe it was 18%, which
18.
is, god awful. And we could go into Montrezl Harrell being the worst version of himself in the bubble. He looked tired. He looked disinterested. He looked like he didn't care.
Gasol looked at it too.
Yeah, so we've got two guys who pretty much were the worst versions of themselves in the bubble coming into training camp. And I really think under this veteran leadership with LeBron, Gerald, that those two will have a fire lit under them for, a redemptive season.
I certainly hope that they don't go ahead and maybe with Pau Gasol, 1-day contract, although I think it should be more fitting if he is retiring and gets that magical 1-day contract, it should be with Memphis, because he really truly was that franchise. As much as he gave the Lakers, I really truly think that he was that franchise. I know LakerTom is shaking his head no, but he was more important part of the Memphis Grizzlies franchise than the Lakers franchise. I'm sorry. See, Sean is agreeing with me. LakerTom, but before, let me give you the intro, Tom. Let me give you the intro. So Sean is agreeing with me on that, but I want to hear from him on Pau Gasol. Either which way, it's a great honor for a Hall of Famer. Let's just put it out that way. He's a Hall of Famer, but I would rather see a spot filled by an actual player that's going to contribute to the team for an entire season, because I'm not sure how much Pau has left. But my friends, again, we've got Sean Grice, but we also have today with us, he is the mastermind behind Lakerholics.com. You've got to be part of the conversation today at Lakerholics.com. It is my good friend indeed. I'm not here to argue again today. I want to just go ahead, peace and love. It's Thanksgiving, so I'm very thankful to be alive and to be breathing somewhat normally here. I'm hoping I'm okay. I'm hoping everyone's okay. Hoping I don't have anything out there, because, I had to go out there and grab all the food for Thanksgiving, so you're always worried about that. But it is LakerTom. And LakerTom, I know you always wanted siding for the Lakers, as do I. But again, I think Pau means more to the Memphis franchise, because he's pretty much essentially, him and Mark have, there's very few others that have really made an impression. Mike Conley. You could put the list on one hand for Memphis.
Hey, I don't have a problem with Memphis hanging a Gasol jersey up in the rafters,
because they will.
They got nothing else to hang up there, so they might as well do that.
Oh, that's harsh.
But
that's harsh.
I will say that we owe Pau Gasol 2 championships, man, and he deserves to have his jersey up in the rafters. And
I didn't say that.
If he was going to go into the Hall of Fame, it would be wearing a Lakers cap, because he didn't do anything.
I think he's going to go to Memphis. I think he's going to choose Memphis. Just to be honest with you, I don't think
they don't get an opportunity to do that in basketball. But you can think that all you want, Gerald, but you're wrong.
I'm not. That's up to the league, the Basketball Hall of Fame, and Pau Gasol. But I think he is given the choice. I just think that he's going to go with Memphis. That's just my opinion. I didn't say
given a choice. They don't wear the Raptors, or they don't wear a hat when they go.
If that's the case, they're probably going to give it to Grizzlies, because there's not as much representation.
Well, nobody's going to give it to him. He would have to come out and state it. And I think, based upon his relationship with Kobe Bryant, his history with the Lakers, that there's no question that he considers the Lakers the peak of his career.
Oh, and I do too. But again,
let me get back to the original question that
getting back to Mark, and I think
let's talk about the Lakers, because I think that I saw one True Hoop there actually had the Lakers ranked 3rd for the 3rd best off season, which really just surprised the hell out of me. I think that
who do they have first and second, if I ask?
Rob Pelinka created a masterpiece.
No, wait. Who do they have first and second?
Clippers and the Bucks.
That's got to be a troll.
Henry must have been smoking. I couldn't understand why.
Okay. I could say Atlanta. You could say Atlanta had a great offseason.
Atlanta had a great offseason. I've seen them missing on most of the top the playoff teams in the East. or they made one of the rankings, one of the power rankings as number 8. They have a pretty good starting lineup.
I mean, if they make the playoffs, if they make the playoffs and the Lakers win the championship, which I'm hoping that the Lakers do, I would tell you honestly that who had the better offseason? It's Atlanta, because they had to go from so much farther below.
I don't know. You also got to measure the difficulty that you have. I think what we saw this offseason, was the genius of Rob Pelinka. Last year, he was handicapped by having to wait for Kawhi making his decision, and he had to really put together a team built with nothing but guys that he could not give more than 2-year contracts. Veterans, he did a masterful job, and then the coaching staff did a terrific job putting them together and creating, a terrific defense, an offense that really relied heavily on LeBron and AD. Pelinka came out this year, and I wrote an article in Medium and on Lakerholics.com about what a masterful job he did, because his first 2 moves were obviously to really do something about the problem of what do you do when LeBron sits or AD sits. And because when we didn't have LeBron and AD on the floor, our offense was anemic. Well, he went out there and he added 2 18-point per game players in Dennis Schroeder and Montrezl Harrell, to replace Rajon Rondo essentially and Danny Green. That was a net increase between the two of them of 45 points a game. They added over 25 points per game difference by those 2 players, which is a tremendous difference in the offense. And Laker fans could have been just thrilled and happy with that as a great accomplishment for Pelinka, but he wasn't done, because then he went back out there and he replaced the best 2 defenders that he had on the team with a pair of elite defenders. I'm not going to hold one playoff series, especially a playoff series in the bubble, against Marc Gasol. He had, for the regular season, the 3rd best defensive rating in the league, and Wesley Matthews had the 2nd best defensive rating in the league for all players at all positions. The best player on the Lakers was 10th, which was Alex Caruso. So you have 2 guys that he added with defensive ratings under 100, which is pretty hard to do in this league today. So what we ended up with is Pelinka jacked up the defense and he jacked up the offense. We did lose some guys. We lost Rajon Rondo, who definitely was instrumental in the playoffs. We lost Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. Frankly, we gave away Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee because we didn't want him anymore. Howard actually accepted an offer that we never made to him, and embarrassingly had to delete his Instagram post. And McGee, we actually went out and gave one of the few 2nd-round picks that we still have left to the Cleveland Cavaliers to get rid of him. So the Lakers made a big change, not only in the personnel of the team, but in the strategy, because they finally got rid of the whole idea that you can win championships and build a sustainable dynasty in the 2020s with a couple of guys that are dinosaurs as far as being in the center position. And instead, he went out and got Marc Gasol, who's shot 38.5% from deep for the regular season, has always been a solid shooter the last 4 or 5 years, is an excellent rim protector. He can't defend on the perimeter at all, but then neither could McGee or Howard. That's the reason why they ended up sitting. It wasn't because they couldn't stretch the floor. It was because they couldn't react fast enough on rotations, and the defense would suspect. It was Morris coming in there to allow AD to play the 5 that really revolutionized our defense. And the Lakers took that to heart because they fixed the offensive side of the center rotation and the defensive side of the center rotation. The next step, this is the article that I just put out today, is they need to go out and get Dwayne Dedmon. Dedmon had a horrible last year, split between Sacramento and
2 years ago
Atlanta. But 2 years ago, the guy was terrific.
I wonder who dropped that knowledge on you.
He played with, at Atlanta, a guy who's our point guard now, Dennis Schroeder.
And the most important thing, that he has worked in training in recently
Yep.
with Rafael Barlow of
Rafael
NBA
Barlow
Draft.
said he looked really good.
Yeah.
And
And then who dropped that knowledge? Who dropped that knowledge? Me.
That was you. That was you. Well, actually, we really should thank Raphael for it.
Yes, we should.
He
Yeah,
gave us the inside scoop.
and I did. I just did previously on a previous episode.
And for anybody who doesn't follow Rafael Barlow, you can tell what kind of a judge of talent and is a knowledge of basketball by just watching any of the NBA Draft Junkies videos where he analyzes prospects, because he's not only a trainer, and he spent that week back in LA training with Dwayne Dedman, but he's also a really excellent analyst and scout.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that we get Dedman, because that would complete the transition from dinosaur centers to modern stretch five centers, and would really give the Lakers. I think the key to this whole thing is that right now we really only have one center, which is Marc Gasol. The problem with the Clippers is they tried to make Harrell a center, but he's not a center. You can't play center at 6'7". He's just too small.
Well, you go, hold on. You can do it with the Lakers, because if you have him with AD.
No, but he won't be playing center when that lineup. AD will be playing center in that lineup.
Yeah.
And here's the key. AD is, you're absolutely right, Gerald, that the key to unlocking Harrell is playing with AD. But by the same token, the key to really unlocking Harrell is if we can get Dedman too, because then we got enough minutes that he can't get enough minutes in the game playing just with AD. Okay, because AD's not going to play the 5 that much, and you can't play him up against a lot of the centers.
But when would you play Morris outside of when you go small in the playoffs? When would you be playing Morris during the season? That's
when we go small, you got to remember, what is our small lineup? Our small lineup is Morris at the 4 and AD at the 5. What I'm saying.
But
we're still going to play that small ball. But in this case, what we got is Gasol at the 5. What we're doing is we traded McGee, the tandem of McGee and Howard. I'm hoping that we will trade that for a Gasol and Dedman duo, which would be just a devastating combination, because then Harrell can play with either one of those guys, because they're stretch 5s.
Well, he lives in LA. He lives in LA.
He'll pull the other center into the outside, and Harrell will eat up any power forwards offensively.
Well, he's from LA. He lives in LA, so he's just on a freeway. Well, actually, that could be a long way if you're driving the LA freeway.
Unlike,
he's a USC Trojan. Fight on.
Well, what about Boogie? Here's the thing that's kind of strange, because everybody's been saying that, or at least I've read half a dozen posts saying basically, well, Boogie decided not to come because he didn't see an opportunity to play. It was a question of playing time. And that's kind of funny, because we only have one center, and it's not like you're offering a third. People thinking that Harrell is the backup center and that Boogie or Dedman would be coming in and being the third center. That's totally wrong.
But Boogie is going in as a starting center for Houston. It is on a non-guaranteed contract.
Yeah,
and he's not starting right away.
They also
not playing right away.
They also sent some money on Christian Wood. Wood is going to be the starting center. Boogie's going to have to prove himself. Going to have to prove that he can still play.
More of a 4. Wood eventually is more of a 4 than a 5.
Wood played the whole second half of the season. He's a 5 in Detroit.
It's undersized, though.
That's where his best game came as a 5.
He's thin.
Houston is a mess. They're playing Mike D'Antoni and Daryl Morey's team with Silas and a new GM.
Right.
It's terrible.
But they added Boogie and Christian Wood. That's a doggone good pick. I mean, if you want to, I wasn't complaining at all about Harrell instead of Ibaka. My complaint was Harrell instead of Wood, because I would have loved to have gotten
I agree with you there. I've sold you first on Christian.
But Harrell as a power forward playing next to a stretch 5, he's going to be 6th man of the year again. Wait and see. And he's going to punish teams.
We don't necessarily know what if we went small ball, we might go micro ball this year. You never know. You could see a lineup of Schroeder, Caruso, Matthews, Harrell, and LeBron. I mean, you could see a combination like that this year. with only
you don't have
one
a
or two
center
centers.
in that lineup. You don't have any.
Well, you only
Frank
have
Vogel's
one or two centers on your team, though. I mean, depending on the matchups, Vogel's shown that he's willing to adapt. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
We have to
I'm
have
saying
another center. We
don't be
have to have another
surprised if.
center. We need another.
Don't. We really don't know whether Rob Pelinka is still in the weeds, right? Looking to see if somebody's looking. Yeah, you never know.
I would like to see Dedmon on that team, and also a backup point guard. That would be great to go ahead and finish out the roster. Yep. Would love a 3-and-D wing too, but you don't have enough spots on the roster, so unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. One of those has to break. But Dwayne Dedmon as a block shotting 3-pointer, that could. Yeah, and if you get him 2 years ago, that would
be a quality guy. You don't find many guys who sign up as a 13th player in the team who have a shot at playing 20 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Now the backup point guard. I was listening to Eric Pincus's YouTube streams where he talks, and he's got a spreadsheet up here and he goes over the salary cap and everything. And I really recommend it for anybody who wants to understand the salary cap and the machinations that you have to pull off as a general manager to listen to Eric's stuff. And it's great because you can just click and move along to find the subjects that you want to talk to. And you'll see the screenshots of the Excel spreadsheets there. But he talked a lot about the Lakers, about the point guard situation. And the point that he really made, I thought was interesting. He says the coaches don't feel like they really need a point guard at this point in time because they have LeBron, they have Schroeder, and they have Caruso. And the third guy that they really think can fill that role is THT. They really expect him to be in the rotation. Now, as I look at it, he's got to be the 12th guy in the lineup, but it just depends on, if somebody gets injured, somebody gets into foul trouble. They really believe that THT can contribute and that he can handle the ball and he can distribute. And he's got some talent. I wouldn't be surprised. Also, the other thing that Eric brought up is he said, if you throw THT into the point guard spot, okay, then all of a sudden you've got 3 guys in the point guard spot and you only got 2 guys in a shooting guard spot. And there's a clutch guy who was on the team last year who's a pretty good shooting guard. And he thinks there's a chance that we may see a return of one of the 2 clutch players that filled in, whether it was J.R. Smith or Dion Waiters. And I think Waiters would be a nice addition as a shooting guard. Or they may go with some of these young kids that they got because there's not a whole lot of there is still some minutes. There's a lot of minutes at center. There's some minutes at guard because we've only got 5 guards. But and a defensive wing, we can always use a defensive wing, but I think maybe they're hoping that McKinney will be able to earn the contract. And the only reason they kept him over Jordan Bell is because Bell had a shorter contract that they could spread the remaining salary over. Otherwise, they would have flipped it around. McKinney has got a 4-year deal, 3-year deal, and would have spread it out to like 6 years to waive and stretch him. And that's the main reason they did it. It wasn't really a talent situation.
Exactly.
So it's kind of funny. I think as much as we think that Rob's done a terrific job and he's almost done, there's still a big piece, which is what happens. I mean, if we don't get Dedmon for some reason, what is the answer there then? Is it like Sean says, we're gonna play some small lineups? How do you rest AD? That's another reason that Dedmon's important, because if you get Dedmon in there, you've got 2 centers. Last year we spent 36 minutes a game with McGee and Howard at center. And now we got one center, which hits your point, Gerald, one 35-year-old injury-prone center.
Yeah, and the reality of the situation is that you're going to have to rest LeBron more. You're going to have to rest AD more. That means sitting them out some games. And also,
we got a lot of guys that got out early.
Yes, and you're also going to have to rest Marc Gasol. You're going to have to give these guys a rest if you want them to be fresher. They cannot play the season, the truncated season,
even the other guys, ACP, Morris. They played in the playoffs all the way through.
Yeah.
So that's one of the nice things about having. You're going to see a lot of minutes with Harrell, a lot of minutes with Schroeder. a lot of minutes with Matthews, because they were out of the playoffs pretty quickly. So those young, Matthews not a young guy, but at least he's rested. And then we may see McKinney and THT get minutes just simply because they have fresh legs compared to a lot of the guys who carried us through for the championship.
So, Sean, I'm going to hit you up with this, and we're almost headed here on the way out for this week, and I want to hear you guys an update on what you're doing. And we may come back on the weekend if we can get something centered. If more news happens for the Lakers, we'll come back on the weekend.
If they sign Dedmon, that would be a nice session.
Yeah, because I'd also like to bring in Jamie's thoughts before we head to training
Right.
camp. So I'd love to hear his thoughts as well on that. But, Sean, before we head on out, I want to hear your thoughts on this. And that is, with the situations as far as the playing time and things of that nature and the roster way it's balanced out, do you specifically think that the Lakers won the offseason?
100%, Gerald. 100% think we not only won the offseason, it was like bottle rockets on the 4th of July as far as I'm concerned. We upgraded the backcourt. We upgraded the front court. I believe in this coaching staff. I believe in this veteran leadership. And I think we still have some few moves to make. Like Tom said, we really do need another center. So we did win the offseason. I mean, you can make a case for Atlanta. You sure could. They really improved themselves. I think you could also make a case for a team like Dallas. They had a sneaky good offseason.
Raphael mentioned them too. Raphael gave them a lot of props on that.
Right, and then I'd slide Portland in there after that.
Yep.
And
I mentioned them. Yes.
Yeah, and then you maybe get to the Bucks. But to me, those 4 teams had the best off seasons.
Well, Bucks win if they get Bogdanovich, but they didn't get Bogdanovich, so it's a moot point.
Bucks win if they get Giannis.
Well, yeah, if they win, if they get Giannis. But Giannis, as of this recording, and recording just the day before Thanksgiving, he's not signed as of yet, and that's going to be a major issue if he goes into training camp and not having signed. And there's going to be a ton of questions on his future there. And Dallas, Miami, the Lakers might be eyeing that, much to LakerTom's chagrin, but they might be eyeing a future with Giannis and LeBron and AD at some point.
The only way they can do that is if they have to trade for him. I mean, look what's happened with the Heat. The Heat had the most cap space, and they had to make a choice. Do they want to anger Bam and disappoint Bam and not extend him?
You got to remember,
everybody else in his class is getting extended, and they have the same agent as Giannis. So they made the decision, and now that's going to leave them with like $20 million.
Well, hold on before you say that.
There's nobody who has enough money to sign Giannis totally out of free agency now.
And I get that, and it'll be a sign and trade deal. But you got to remember, Bam has the same agent as Giannis. So I just want to give that up to you on that. But yeah,
the reason why we might see Costas be one of those filling spots at the end there.
That's
true. He might be the backup center. He and Peacock could be the backup centers. That's
down the road. That's in June of 2021, July of 2021. We'll talk about those issues if they really happen, if it's even realistic. Go ahead, Sean.
Well, let me ask you a question, Gerald. Just a gut shot. Do you think he signs that extension before the season?
I told you already that I thought he was going to do it. Now I'm not so sure. I'm wavering now. I'm wavering hard now. I would have personally, I would have, if I had his talent, I would have, and then just said, you know what, Milwaukee, if you're not going to get me to trade me, I'm just going to make life miserable for you after a year if you don't trade me. I would have taken my money and needed to, because you can see that in the NBA, you can do that. You can have your money and you can have your trade to a team that you're interested in if they have enough assets. So you can have that.
The only problem with that is they don't have to trade you where you want to go.
No, but they can make.
There's going to be like 15 teams offering everybody on their roster.
Yeah. So
but remember something about this franchise though. The last time they gave up their true superstar, what happened?
He went to the Lakers, man.
Yeah, exactly. It just went on to win 5 championships, few more MVPs, couple NBA Finals MVPs.
Schroeder and KCP total exactly what Giannis is making right now.
That's
If
incredible.
Giannis were to demand to be traded to the Lakers, he could pull an AD.
There you go. Could happen. Although, like I said, I'm not gonna. It's not. I'm just. These are just just throwing stuff
I
out
think
there.
he's not going to say. I think Milwaukee blew it because their front office made some real faux pas, deals that other people they screwed up a deal that other teams would have completed, and that's
if they had
not a good look.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Tom. I was just going to say if they had kept Malcolm Brogdon, I guarantee Gerald, I'm with you. I think he would have signed that. I think he would have signed that extension.
You don't mess with
54
to 90.
Eliminated out of the playoffs in the.
He was. Tom's right. He was so pissed off about that.
Yeah, you don't mess with 50, 40, 90.
I thought
50, 40, 90 is the real deal.
And not chase Kawhi Leonard.
Brogdon is a great player and a really strong asset, a great complementary player, and that was a mistake on their part. But you're right. We'll see what happens. Again, we're just spitballing. We're only speculating. It's just throwing out some light speculation. I'm not really taking much stock into it. The chances.
I looked at my crystal ball, Gerald, and it said he wasn't taking a deal, man.
Yeah, well, Antetokounmpo, the chances he'll go on the Lakers, it's a long shot, but we'll see.
I think it's a long shot that he goes to the Lakers, and I actually, one of the articles that's been in the hopper for probably 6 months because I haven't been able to finish it is that I think there are good reasons why he's not a great fit for the Lakers.
I think he's an awesome fit. I think he'd be great with LeBron and AD. Don't
even get play center. Is he willing to play center?
Why not? He could play all 5 positions, man. He can guard all 5 positions.
He's a bigger Kuzma otherwise, because we have 2 superstars playing the 3 and the 4.
Okay,
he can't play the 2 and he can't play the 1, so he's going to have to play the 5.
AD, Giannis, LeBron, and 2 shooters.
Every championship team.
Oh my God! Just
every championship team out there, though, has had a superstar guard.
Again, the superstar guard is named LeBron James.
LeBron James right now.
Yeah, but to have
you need to replace him with a guard, not with.
There is nobody, absolutely no team in the NBA that's going to beat the Lakers best out of 4 to 7 with LeBron, AD, and Giannis as 3 and 2 shooters. That's all you have to do.
No chance.
No chance. But again,
he'll be center. He'll be the center.
Let's not go that far down. Okay. Again, we're just talking about fantasy land here for now. Could be real someday. We'll talk about it then.
Well, here's the angle that's interesting about it. If you were Giannis, Gerald, what team would you think you had the best chance of winning a championship?
I'm not, like I said, I'm trying to just temper my enthusiasm for that. So I'm just going to say, it would be the Lakers.
2 teams come to mind, Tom.
Kawhi had 2 rings.
And he was trying on his brother's uniform over the summer. Yes, we know. But go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, no, I was going to say.
Go ahead, Sean. Go ahead.
I think Tom's right. I think there are only a couple of teams he looks at and he can win a championship with. One's on the East Coast, Miami. One's on the West Coast, Lakers.
Yeah, but Miami's just a southern version of Milwaukee.
Well, they've got they can easily flip Dragic and Myers Leonard next year. And, and just slide Giannis right in there.
Who's the other superstar to go with Giannis? You think Jimmy Butler and Giannis is going to beat LeBron and AD?
I think a Jimmy Butler, Giannis, and Bam can beat a Nets.
3 guys who don't shoot the 3.
AD and Kyrie.
3 guys who don't shoot the 3.
All right. Again, let's not go too far into the Giannis because it's like going to a rabbit hole.
He must have a TV show starting soon. He's trying to get out of here fast.
Well, no, because I've got another interview on the lineup, but that's be that as it may. But I'm just going to say this. We'll go down for the Giannis tree if it happens. Giannis, if it's a thing for the Lakers, then yes, I think that's when you should start the conversation.
2 years,
Right now, we're just spitballing, and it's not going to do us any good to go ahead and start the what ifs and speculations and whatnot. So we'll see. Now, could it creep closer to that? We'll see. We'll find out. But before we head on out, guys, I want to go ahead and get updates on what you're working on with Lakerholics.com. Sean, a.k.a. Magic Man, the guy who is the bane of LakerTom's existence outside of myself and also Jamie's tweets when it comes to
Jamie,
comments.
really. Sean
Yeah,
and I
right.
agree on everything.
Okay. Well,
Jamie, who are the...
I don't know if you guys agree on. I've seen the comments. I don't know if you guys agree on everything, but go ahead, Sean. Tell us.
Positive, glass half full attitude.
Okay.
Whereas
Well,
Jamie are always pouring the glass empty.
while I make this water half empty, why don't you go ahead and tell us what you're doing at Lakerholics.com?
Gerald, I'm the prodigal blogger. But I'm working on some micro lineups right now, because when you look at the center position as far as free agency is concerned, it's really a dearth of talent, my friend. It's slim pickings. And there was a dearth of talent in the guard position.
It's empty, but go ahead.
And there was a dearth of
You're
talent
always
in the guard
working
position.
on emptying it, Gerald.
But go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
Somehow Pelinka managed to pull off getting Matthews and Schroeder, which was a shrewd move. So we're going to have to look at
was a shrewd move.
Yes, pardon the pun.
Anyway, that wasn't planned. But we really need to look at some micro ball lineups, because, like Gerald and Tom were saying, even with maybe an injury-prone Marc Gasol and another center, you're going to have to fill those minutes with somebody. And we saw what Markieff could do in the playoffs at the 5. So I think micro ball is definitely something to look at.
And you're going to be writing about that upcoming, and plus also sharing your comments, where there's so many other people that are commenting and following right now, Lakerholics.com. Again, I encourage everyone to go ahead and travel to Lakerholics.com. I want you to flood it so much, not DDoS flood, okay? Because that's some hacker stuff that I don't want you to get into. But I want you to flood it with so much volume that LakerTom can't post all of his crazy trades on there, that he really has to go ahead and upgrade his internet. But before you upgrade your internet and post your crazy trades and post your awesome articles alongside of that, which you can check out your medium.com. See, that's your catch-22. If there's so much volume going to Lakerholics.com and you can't post it, you'll just say, haha, Gerald, I can go ahead and post it on my medium.com site. What's going to go on as far as what you're posting in the upcoming days at Lakerholics.com, provided you can?
Well, I just posted 2 articles in the last 2 days. One of them was
That's it?
One of them was the subject of Giannis Antetokounmpo. And it was basically pointing out that the Lakers have adjusted their approach. They understand right now that there's no way, with the depressed salary cap because of the pandemic, it's only going to go from, it was 109 last year, it's 109 this year, it'll go to 112 next year. There's no way that the Lakers can really land him in free agency. They've also broken through. The only way they could land him in free agency is if LeBron and AD were willing to play for $20 million instead of $39 million. Run the numbers, Gerald. I've run the numbers.
You know, they saw that they did this 10 years ago in Miami, roughly. I'm just telling you, they all took big cuts.
They gave up $3 or $4 million, not $15 million apiece.
I'm just telling.
But there is a route. The whole point of this article is that the route for the Lakers, and as we saw the Miami Heat, that's the route for the Miami Heat now. For any team that wants Giannis, is basically you have to trade for him.
Oh yeah, I agree with you.
It's a trade or a sign and trade, one or the other. There's no other route. And so that article basically details all of the salary cap machinations that teams are trying to do. And the simple truth is, you can do it if you just have one superstar. But if you have 2 superstars like the Lakers, you can't even do it if you just get rid of your entire roster. And the whole point really of adding somebody like Giannis is not to have to get rid of your entire roster that you've spent 2 years building into a championship team. You want to be able to send pieces over there to trade for him. And the Lakers have done a great job of adding tradable contracts to their roster. That's one of the big things that Pelinka has done. Yes. So there's a great article on there on Lakerholics.com about that move. And then secondly, I just posted this morning an article on Dwayne Dedmon. about how important Dedmon is to finishing off the terrific job that Rob Pelinka has done in rebuilding the championship roster and making it even better. And I agree 100% with Sean that the Lakers have the best off season, period. They had it's a lot easier if you're Atlanta and you got $40 million in cap space to go out and throw money at people.
Mhm.
But the Lakers basically, with no cap space at all, engineered a trade for Schroeder and then ended up getting 3 guys to sign, 3 extremely great players still able to contribute to a championship team to sign for the veterans minimum, basically. That's what we got Gasol for. That's what we got Morris for. And that's the big difference of being a championship team. We were able to pull those moves off, and we lost 4 or 5 players. We upgraded each one of those positions that we lost. So the Lakers are in great shape, and I think that we're going to see as we move forward, if we can land Dedmon, it's going to be a challenge to see who plays, because we'll have a 12-man rotation. And that's exactly, as I think you pointed out earlier in one of the podcasts before, Gerald, it's exactly what we needed to do. We needed an infusion of younger legs, and we needed a deep roster so that we could get load management time for LeBron and AD.
I pat myself on the back for that.
And Rob Pelinka accomplished all of those things.
One of the rare times I do, I guess. But I will say this. When it comes to Giannis Antetokounmpo and your article, I will quote the great Jim Carrey. So you're telling me there is a chance. Think about that.
I outlined exactly how he could pull an AD.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
Yep. But he has to pull an AD. That's the only chance.
So you're telling me, well, I tell you what, AD, whatever he signs for, that's going to be a telling sign. If he signs for a 1-and-1, that could be a very telling sign as far as it's concerned.
Yeah, it could indicate that maybe LeBron and him are willing to say, hey, Giannis, we're all 3 free agents. Let's come to the Lakers and we'll split. Here's the problem. I mean, AD makes 30%. Giannis makes 30% of the cap, and LeBron makes 35%. If you have any math skills, you can add that up quickly to see it's 95%.
If I'm Genie Bus, I'm
in free agency. If you sign him for 95% of the cap,
I'm saying
5% of the cap to fill it out with enough players to qualify as a legal team.
If I get those 3, I don't care what the tax bill is. I'm paying that tax.
That's not the way you want to do it, because you have a team with nobody. We're going to see that. We're going to see.
You just said the Lakers are signing all these minimum contracts because they're the Lakers. If they get those 3 players, do you know what? How many?
You don't sign guys like KCP and Dennis Schroeder, and you don't sign those quality of players for minimum contracts. What you get are the 35-year-old Marc Gasols.
You might get like 27, 28-year-old,
33-year-old Markieff Morris, who's sharing his brother's $64 million bank account.
I'm telling you, I'm running with that triumvirate. I'm running with that.
Sign and trade is the way to do it, because then you come back and you got those 3 guys, and you've got Schroeder, and you've got Markieff, and you've got Gasol, and you've got all of these other players online.
I'm not telling you differently. I'm saying that was likely to happen. Like, common sense is going to tell you.
I will bet you the kitchen sink. I know you're not bet.
I'm not betting Jamie Sweet.
Giannis Antetokounmpo is not going to sign as a free agent. He will be traded.
No, I said I'm agreeing with you. I've been agreeing with you the whole episode that it is going to be a sign and trade. That's the common sense. I'm just saying that
it's going to be a sign and trade. It's only a sign and trade if he doesn't get traded at the trade deadline.
Well, again, to get those assets back and to make it work a little bit better under the cap, but. Again, this is just a pipeline step. We're going far down the Giannis rabbit hole than I want to go ahead right now.
Well, but the rabbit hole is dominating in everything that the Lakers have done the last 2 years. Yeah. So that's not a rabbit hole. That's part of the character of this team and what their motivation is.
So you're telling me there's a chance. Go ahead, Sean. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, no, Gerald, I was just going to say, we could go down the rabbit hole with this situation all day. But the fact remains is that I believe if he doesn't agree to sign the Supermax before the season starts, Then that means it rolls over to the off season. He can't sign it until free agency, I believe. So that complicates things.
That means that he
further.
gets traded at mid-season, because who wants to wait and take a chance that he might go away for nothing?
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens indeed. So
Why
down.
the Lakers are in great shape, because they added all these contracts that December 11th, December 11th in a normal season. In this season, somewhere before the trade deadline, February. Some of these guys are going to be eligible to be traded.
Well, far down the rabbit hole we went indeed. But again, let's just talk about the team heading into training camp for now. Again, if there's any more info and news coming up, we will come back on the weekend as far as for our regular live taping, and it will show next week on audio if that's the case. But I will get these guys back together soon, whether or not it's before or after the start of training camp. We'll wait and see. But again, guys, it's been great talking about. That's LakerTom and Sean, a.k.a. Magic Man, Sean Grice. You got to go ahead and check out what they're doing today at Lakerholics.com. Well, guys, far down the rabbit hole we go, but there's still a chance. There's still a chance indeed. And we'll talk about that in the coming weeks and months, possibly, as long as the Giannis soap opera keeps playing out. But we'll talk about that and more as far as the Lakers possibly repeating with an upgraded roster as they head into training camp and the 2021 season. We'll talk about that and more coming up in the next few weeks right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.